name's Bond. James Bond.
Hello and welcome. You're listening to Bond vs. Godzilla, the podcast that compares and contrasts two of the longest-running film series in cinema history. Willie's a rude asshole and stopped me in the middle of my introduction. How dare you, sir?
Because you were
How
a little
dare
bit
you?
loud.
You're a little bit loud.
Start again one more time.
That's why Willie's an authority on it.
Start again one more time.
Hello and welcome. You're listening to Bond vs. Godzilla, the podcast that compares and contrasts two of the longest-running film series in cinema history. My name is Cruz Moore, and I will be your resident Godzilla expert on this show. Joining me on this cinematic journey for however long it lasts are three of my very good friends who each have their own history and experience with both film franchises. Bond expert Jacob Roberts.
Hi, my name is Jacob Roberts, and No Time to Die was so freaking good!
Audio engineer Willie Crook.
When I go to space.
And digital artist Chas Lemons.
Hi, I'm Charles Lemons, and you gotta watch out for Gigan. He's huge!
On today's episode, we'll be tackling Moonraker from 1979 and Godzilla vs. Gigan from 1972. So without further ado, Jake, give us a backstory on this Bond film is brought to you by the letter 7-Up.
After the success of The Spy Who Loved Me, Cubby Broccoli and Eon Productions planned for the next film to be an adaptation of For Your Eyes Only. However, plans changed thanks to a little-known film released in 1977 called Star Wars. All of a sudden, science fiction was cool again, and American audiences in particular couldn't get enough of it. The opportunity presented itself, and so Broccoli immediately jumped on the bandwagon with his decision to instead make an adaptation of Moonraker, the third Ian Fleming novel and the last full-length Bond novel yet to be adapted. While the original book merely dealt with Bond trying to prevent the launch of a nuclear missile, the simple title of Moonraker really only promised one thing: James Bond was going into space. To many, this may seem like the ultimate shark jump, the final frontier from which no franchise could return from while maintaining any sense of dignity or credibility. Yet many first-time viewers are surprised to see that Bond going into space is actually only a fraction of the weirdness in a film that more than doubled the budget of its predecessor. NASA's first space shuttle prototype, Enterprise, was manufactured in California in 1976 and was conducting air tests the following year, just in time for the Star Wars explosion. The first successful orbital flight of a Moonraker-style space shuttle occurred in 1981, only a few years after Moonraker's release. Cubby Broccoli's decision paid off. Although Moonraker is seen with a mixed reception from fans and critics today, at the time of its release, it was the most profitable Bond film yet, and would maintain that record until 1995's GoldenEye.
A sentence that you said in the middle of that I kind of wanted to jump in and make a joke during. I stopped myself because it's your explanation, and I don't think any of us have interrupted an explanation before.
Until now.
Yeah. Would you have minded that, Cruz?
I would have minded that, yeah.
Okay.
I would have minded that greatly. I have a knife under the table for this instance any of you go out of line.
So it looks like we're continuing in the vein of, like, adventure of the week with these Bond films and getting into the more ridiculous aspects. With this one, I feel like, is this the limit that we're getting to in terms of ridiculousness? Because this almost feels like a Saturday morning cartoon.
Define ridiculousness.
A double taking
ridiculous?
a double taking pigeon. You got a room full of glass that inevitably has to be destroyed in the fight scene.
Just almost one by one, almost.
The return of Jaws and him finding a wonderful love interest. So, Jake, explain.
Hey, I'm confusion.
It really, in terms of, is this the height, depends on your threshold. I'd say that there are a few instances in the Brosnan era when we get to that may hold a candle. As far as Roger Moore goes, this is definitely peak weird. I mean, this is Bond in space and everything that comes with it and everything that shouldn't come with it. This is definitely a movie that I do enjoy just because of how firmly planted its tongue is into its cheek. This movie, the way I look at it, I find Moonraker's antics to be relatively forgiving, just because you can tell watching it that the movie isn't really taking itself that seriously. The movie is willing to have some fun at its own at its own expense, well, with the double taking pigeons and laser guns and gondola hovercrafts and.
But I feel like I'm completely giving a pass to all these weird, strange things that are happening in this. But then we get to the laser guns, and by that point, I'm like, because when you really think about it, would it have made any difference to have actual guns when they're having the final climactic fight scene?
Oh, actually, it would have.
You can't fire real ballistic.
Well, no, in the space station.
In the space
especially
station,
in the space station.
In the space station, there's probably enough suspension of disbelief to get away with it. Outside in the space battle, no.
But imagine having to do the wire work for somebody who is now firing a gun in a direction, and they have to scoot back a direction because gun recoil, and also the gases escaping the gun is kind of like a little thruster.
Oh yeah, that's true. Then use a spear gun. They did in Thunderball.
Recoil.
Yeah, like they do underwater. Like those still have recoil.
Oh, I wasn't surprised that laser guns don't have recoil.
Well, they don't.
Okay. Why?
Because it's just shooting.
Because they're lasers.
Yes.
Lasers.
Unless you're putting firing a particle in some laser lores.
But then it begs the question: do laser guns ever come back in the series?
They do not, and I'm thankful for it. The laser guns are more special because they only exist within the realms of Moonraker, and it's so it's so funny because I'm gonna bring it back once again to GoldenEye 64, the video game that kind of first introduced me to Bond. And there is a secret level in that game entirely based off of Moonraker. You have to stop the shuttle from launching. You have this really cool boss battle with Jaws, and you get the laser gun. You get to go run around and shoot people with the laser gun, which has the same statistics as a revolver, except it has unlimited ammo because it's a friggin' laser gun, and it's the best weapon in the goddamn game. And it's just so when I actually got around to watching Moonraker, the movie, and I could see how much they translated from the movie into the game, including the design of the lasers. The entire layout of Drax's base looks exactly the same, and I'm just like, I guess the laser guns.
Yeah, both of these movies had laser guns in them through some means.
I was really wondering, especially with the intro of the film, how can they top what they pulled off with the last one of him just leaping off of the mountain, and they decided, from what looked like, legitimately filming people who were skydiving, right?
Yeah, they were. Yeah, the stunt work falling out of the airplane was actual full free falling that was done for real. Yeah. The actors did have parachutes hidden underneath their clothes, so they did have parachutes on in case so they can get back to the ground.
Yeah, I was paying attention to that because I'm because his jacket is flipping in the air, and I'm I can just barely make out something underneath there. But
yeah, his flight suit was really packed. Was he doesn't look that fat.
So that was two stuntmen and then one cameraman.
Yeah, the stuntmen and cameraman, and they were in free fall the entire time. That was filmed for real. The idea of Bond getting pushed out of a plane without a parachute was the idea of Michael G. Wilson, who is the godson of Cubby Broccoli. Moonraker was his first. He'd been working on the films for a while now. Moonraker is the first one where he is fully credited as an executive producer, where he first really started to take charge of the franchise, and he and Barbara Broccoli are still the ones in charge of the Bond films to this day. So this is really where Michael G. Wilson stepped up and got his start.
And then we transitioned to, what I had my hopes up for, which was as of right now, Diamonds Are Forever is probably my favorite Bond theme, at least of the classic Bond themes, because I don't know if anyone can beat just the strong black female voice of Shirley Bassey. It's like you can't really get any better than that. And then this is like the last of her themes for the series.
This is the third one she does.
And unfortunately, it's the weakest of the three.
She doesn't belt it. It's much more of a serenade, which I think they're obviously going for, that space opera feel to it. So, it was kind of that smoother, jazzier, yet still kind of upbeat with a hint of synth to it. So they were kind of going for that space opera feel as opposed to big band belting it.
Yeah, it's more of like a chillax kind of feeling.
Moonraker is just more of a ballad than a belting song.
So elements in this film. First off, we have our Bond girl of the week, Dr. Holly Goodhead.
One of the most underwhelming, nonchalant, just completely unamused throughout the entire film.
Nothing phases her.
Yeah, like
Absolutely nothing phases
Not having
her.
anyone's shit.
I mean,
you're literally on a space station that probably shouldn't exist, and she's like, "Yeah, if you press that button, it'll do that, and then we're gonna go over here."
But she's fully trained. You bring that up and Dr. Goodhead really doesn't show much emotion in a lot of things. I appreciate her as being actually valuable to the plot. She actually brings a skill set and knowledge that Bond doesn't have. She gets captured briefly, so that's a mark off of her, but she gets saved before the climax, so she can actually participate in the climax.
and doesn't get captured again.
Yeah, so as far as a function to the plot, I'd say Dr. Goodhead is actually one of the... she's definitely a Bond girl who has, who earns a spot in the Pantheon. She actually does shit, which is more than you can say for most, especially in the Roger Moore era.
Like, I thought it was pretty funny that it almost seems like her attitude towards him is just like, because he tried to mansplain rocket things to her, and she's just like, no, I'm not having your shit for the rest of this.
And that part's believable. When she gets introduced when she gets first introduced, and Bond is just being an absolute chauvinistic pig to her. and she brings it back to him. That part's believable.
Yeah.
That part really kind of ingratiates her to you. It's like, yeah, don't take his shit.
So, was there any reality to him being in the spinning astro? I don't know the technical term for that.
The centrifuge.
Yeah. Was it?
No,
that,
I know.
or was
I know
it then,
how
like,
they. I know how they. The way they did the close-ups on his strained face and stuff is they just took a blow dryer to his face.
Oh, okay.
They just blew strong air into his face to make his cheeks wiggle. And then the rest of the centrifuge, I'm pretty sure, was just stock.
So there's something about this villain, maybe it was his accent that I couldn't place, but I did really like his presence and his charisma and how his particular mission, I think, is one of the more sinister ones. It's a lot like Albert Wesker's from Resident Evil 5, which is just, I will release this into the atmosphere and create a whole new stage of evolution.
Hugo Drax is one of my favorite villains in the entire series.
Cool.
He would easily land in my top 10, if not top 5 favorite villains. For pretty much all the reasons that you've said, you pretty much nailed it on the head there. His plan is absolutely dastardly. He doesn't just want to, destroy the world and end all life on Earth. He wants to then repopulate it and rule it as a god.
With only the most sexiest, stunning people in the world.
Yeah, with only beautiful perfection. And then, as you said, the way he speaks, Mikhail Lonsdale, who plays Hugo Drax, he is a native Frenchman, and he just has this droningness, and it's kind of fun because we're saying how Dr. Goodhead doesn't have much of a reaction to things. Yet here we have Drax, who is pretty much monotone in every single line he delivers. However, that monotone delivery carries such gravitas behind it, combined with his penchant for very flowery language, just trying to choose the most poetic and long-winded way to say everything and doing it without even trying. And he just commands this presence about him.
Like, he's never really surprised.
Peter Dinklage.
Hush. Give me a second. Okay. He's never surprised no matter how many times. He's never surprised no matter... Jacob, your face. No matter how many times James Bond comes in front of him alive. He's never surprised. Anna Cruz really pushed back against this idea that he looks he looks like a large Peter Dinklage.
No, he doesn't.
He looks a bit like Peter Dinklage, Cruz.
Sorry, Cruz, I see it. But
you need to watch more Peter Dinklage shit. Then
that's also true. I have a picture of him right here.
I'm the only person. Sorry, I'm the only person here that has watched all of Game of Thrones, so I feel like I would know if Peter Dinklage looks like someone.
Not Game of Thrones, Peter Dinklage, not Peter, but like go.
Okay,
see,
fine.
Like,
maybe his role in the X-Men movie, he looks a bit like him, I guess.
Because I see it it's not just in like, the beard and just like you kind of have like the slight shape of the face and the way his eyebrows and the bridge of his brow kind of juts out a little bit. I see it.
Why does Drax, who has I'm assuming a fine taste in all things, especially with his mansion and his training outfit
his
and
afternoon
everything.
tea.
Yeah.
Yeah, he dresses like a dictator.
All of his futurists, a very suave dictator.
Who's going to rule the best
Who
dynasty.
only enjoys the best of maple syrup. Has his new beautiful race of human beings wearing nothing but yellow jumpsuits. It's not exactly the most pleasing to the eye.
And
space
and safety helmets that look like an anaconda wrapped around their head and coiled up around their ears.
No, that was in the water.
Like, why did the costume department pick yellow for that?
Probably because general just Xeros kind of senses. I mean, it's probably for similar reasons as to why the villains in Godzilla all wore fucking burnt orange.
I mean, yeah, like that was around the early 70s, but now we're getting out of it. So, like, I don't know, the yellow is just so weird.
And you think the 80s get a pass in fashion?
Yes.
I
We haven't even gotten to that yet.
I don't know, but like I would think they would try to do yellow to like make it a little bit more easy to distinguish, maybe.
Yeah,
but
no,
I'm not sure.
it's definitely another one of those cases, like once again in Thunderball, which I'm sure played a huge inspiration with the final battle, where you have essentially an army on army battle, and they needed you to be able to easily distinguish the armies.
Yeah, their spacesuits do not look all that distinct.
It's funny because like you bring up about Drax and his responses to Bond escaping death traps. I feel that Drax tends to try to place Bond in more unnecessary death traps than any other villain. Mm-hmm. Like, even when they were on a hunting ground and Drax was surrounded by several, I assume, loyal henchmen, all wielding guns, and any of them could have just, shot Bond and probably swept it under the rug. No, we need to have a sniper in the tree and do a pheasant thing. Yeah. So Drax, more than most villains, I feel, has that need to not just kill Bond, but beat Bond. Which is why every time Bond escapes one of these death traps, Drax doesn't seem upset so much as he just seems annoyed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just like...
I'm not angry, Bond. I'm just disappointed.
In my death traps, they should be working.
Because he was like, you've managed to escape my more amusing traps, Bond.
Yeah.
Also, Cruz thought he looked more like Laszlo from What We Do in the Shadows.
Does.
Yeah. He kind of, like, especially in his stature a little bit more.
And as much as I do like him as a villain, we do... Oh, once again, it's connected to freaking Game of Thrones. It's like, you have the quickest... feeling of like Bond meets up with this woman, she ends up helping him, he ends up sleeping with her, and sure enough, that immediately leads to your death. And 5 minutes later, you have the quickest way of Drax going like, I know that you helped Bond. No, I didn't. Yes, you did. And I know that you're working against me. No, I'm not. Yes, you are. So you are fired. Okay. Walks away. Could have gotten in a golf cart that she used to get into the scene, but no, she runs into the forest as two Dobermans chase her and eat her alive, just like Ramsay Bolton.
She runs past the
The
golf cart.
I mean, I'm sure those dogs could still probably have outrun the golf cart.
But a golf cart.
And she's like,
She can run over them.
She's like in like formal casual dress, so she's like wearing high heels or something.
Trudging through the forest.
Jake,
Yeah.
it's your job to give me an explanation as to why I had to watch another horrible scene of dogs attacking someone in the forest. There's a golf cart right there.
The dogs in particular, or they just killed another woman?
Both. Because that's one of the more brutal ways.
It was very brutal. It was definitely a brutal death, getting essentially mauled to death by a pair of dogs. That's extremely brutal. In terms of killing off a girl once her use and the plot is over, we're 11 movies in. You should be used to that by now.
Yeah, but now, I mean, there's a certain subtle, creepy artistry when you walk into a room and you find one covered in gold, and it's like, whoa, that's a message and a threat. Versus Ramsay Boltoning.
So what do you think of Jaws and his character arc?
He's the best part of the whole movie.
Yeah. Again.
Yeah.
I thought it was just going to be like, okay, the henchman comes back, but no, like, it really does become like a Warner Brothers cartoon where Bond just keeps seeing him and they give each other the stare like,
And the smile.
hey.
They're gonna start skipping, aren't they?
Every time Jaws and Bond see each other, they have this smile. It's like, all right, let's do this. Let's dance.
I'm almost expecting it to be like Popeye and Olive Oil, where he's like flinging her all around while they're holding hands or something.
So is there any behind the scenes info as to like the writing process behind, let's make this henchman a more legit character and then have him run into a beautiful blonde Swiss woman?
The idea for Jaws becoming more sympathetic was generally just because he was so popular. Like, he was the standout character from The Spy Who Loved Me.
They did not want to kill him.
They wanted they went so far as to change the ending of The Spy Who Loved Me just so they can bring him back. And I know there is a story. I want to say it was Lewis Gilbert, the director, who his child went up to him and asked, why does Jaws have to be a baddie? Why can't he be a goodie? And that inspired the process for Jaws to go through this character arc and switch over to Bond's side by the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
After realizing that, yeah, they're probably.
Oh yeah, this guy's gonna freaking kill me and my girlfriend once everything is said and done.
Mm-hmm.
It was pretty cool seeing Bond fight with like a significantly larger person for once instead of like
fighting
against them. Yeah.
And once again, Richard Kiel, because of his gigantism, really couldn't do his own stunt. He couldn't really do anything besides stand there and smile.
And it's pretty seamless too, because it seems like he's doing a lot of stunt work.
It
They do a
does.
real good job. They could do a real good job of hiding the stunt work. There's this funny idea surrounding Dolly, Jaws' girlfriend, where she is actually the center of sort of a Mandela effect within the fandom, where there's this common false memory for people that haven't seen Moonraker in a long time. There's this false memory of Dolly having braces.
Oh my god. Yeah.
She doesn't. She doesn't have braces. You
Right.
see it in the movie, she smiles, she doesn't have braces, but it's this common false memory of people misremembering her having braces.
Because when you first see her, you see her smile at Jaws, and you're in the back of my head, I'm just thinking she's gonna have braces. She's gonna have no braces. Oh, okay then.
My favorite fight scene in this one is the one that takes place on top of the rail cars in Rio.
Which completely put me on the edge, because for the concept of the tram, the rail cars going up and down a mountain, it's like, nope, never, ever, 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 ever.
Cruz,
Ever.
it's not on a rail, it's on a cable.
Yeah, no.
Oh.
Which is even better.
And
Someone can bite through that.
it's made out of black licorice, damn it.
Who would want to bite into that?
They quite obviously cut that thing in half and then just let Jaws pull it apart.
No, because those teeth, as I said, are uncomfortable as hell.
Yeah.
And
You could try.
And that's literally what they made that cable out of, was black licorice.
Oh,
Really?
Yeah,
that's
that was black licorice.
awesome.
Cool.
It just painted steel gray.
Oh, so that probably didn't taste too good.
There were no wires involved The stunt team did all those stunts and things on top of the rail car with no wires. It was done for real, including the moment where the tram comes to a stop and Bond kind of falls and kind of holds over to the side and is barely standing on, holding on. Stuntman did that for real, no wires.
I don't know what's worse, falling to death with a rail car or falling to death with a rail car that crashes into a giant 7-Up stand.
Oh, that's 7-Up. And I love it because
at least
it's kind of a blink and you miss it kind of detail. I'm not sure you guys saw it, but after the tram car crashes into the station and it's just nothing but rubble. Everything is covered with like white plaster and dirt except for this bright green 7-Up jug that's just sitting on the table, totally pristine.
So that brings us to the insane, blatant
Yay! Product
placement. I'm losing my brain. Jake, explain.
What product placement? I didn't see
any product placement. I don't know what you guys are talking about.
It was so subtle, but god damn, I need a 7-Up.
God, let me light this Marlboro cigarette real quick.
Before I catch my plane.
Of flying on British Airways at some point, too.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure the blatant product placement was likely due to the budget of the film, because this film was double the budget of the previous film. $34 million to make this.
34 times more than Dr. No.
Yeah, how long was the previous movie, too? Because this one was 2 hours and 6 minutes, and they used that runtime.
This is a long one, for sure. This is one of the longer films. And a lot of that budget had to go into studio filming, because the majority of the studio filming for Moonraker didn't happen at Pinewood Studios. The majority of it occurred in France. They essentially moved the entire production to France because of some like changes in the tax law or something like that got in the way of studio film budget or something. So pretty much all of the studio film work, including all of the sets built by Ken Adam, was in France.
Interesting.
And France doesn't have as big of a film industry as the United Kingdom does. So essentially the production of Moonraker took over the entirety of the French film industry.
Just adding more like aquatic gadgets, like the car submarine in the last movie, and then
a hovercraft gondola.
A hovercraft gondola that is also a powered gondola, and also you get a boat that is just like a normal speedboat, but it also has a remote control torpedo, friggin' mines. And I'm sure something I'm forgetting by now.
There was the torpedo and the hang glider.
Had a hang glider, yeah.
Oh, yeah, and the hang glider.
Funny thing about the hang glider, that actually leads into something. That entire Amazon sequence was filmed near Iguazu Falls, which is, I believe it is the largest waterfalls within the Amazon. If I'm remembering correctly, it sits right on... very near kind of the border of 3 South American countries. And I've heard a story that with the hang gliding sequence that the stuntmen accidentally hang glided past the border.
Oh, shit.
Oh, no.
And they had to clear that up with immigration, which, it's the Amazon. So, the South American governments take that shit very seriously. So apparently that there was a bit of a mess they had to clean up when a stuntman hang glided over the border. One thing of note for this film is that this was Bernard Lee's last appearance as M. In fact, Moonraker, a lot of the key members of the Bond production team get switched out after this movie going forward into the new direction. Bernard Lee himself sadly succumbed to cancer before the production began on the next movie. So, Cruz, why do you have a problem with Bond killing space Nazis?
Well, at first it starts off with the Thunderball sequence where you have 2 opposing forces fighting each other, and this time they're doing it in space, which there's got to be a better way. they're shooting all these laser guns, and as soon as it hits one of your air tanks, you get jettisoned into the vacuum of space, and it's like that is not good. It is the most why is it really
not
worth
Bond's
it?
fault.
It is though.
All Bond did in that moment
the
was
villain or the Marines.
The Marines.
all Bond did to bring the Marines into space was say, "Hey guys, you got some shit up here. You got to take care of it. I'm going to unjam your signal
I
now."
mean, technically,
like Bond did not tell them to.
I don't
come.
think any right-minded soldier would be like, yeah, I'm going to train to shoot space rifles in space, knowing full well that if I get shot, even clipped a little bit, I will be jettisoned into nothing.
Well, the other knowledge behind that is like, yet technically it would be easier to just let them wipe out humanity, but they
there's a problem with that.
Well, the problem
they probably have someone that they're willing to die for.
To be fair, I'm pretty sure
there's
those American
dying.
Marines were probably expecting to fight stormtroopers, so they probably weren't expecting to get hit. Whereas Drax's men actually can aim.
There's dying, and then there's a fate worse than death, which is getting clipped on the shoulder and going woo into nothing.
Dying in space would suck.
And running
Yeah.
into Sandra Bullock and George Clooney.
Dying in space would suck hard.
But then we get to the climax where, Bond finally kills Drax, and it's like, okay, that's done is done. You don't need to... Why are you putting him in the air?
He
Okay.
shoots him with a poison dart. Then he's like, "Well, you seem a bit warm."
Take a giant step for mankind.
Yeah, he
right.
opens the fucking door so he can be jettisoned into space. That is... Jesus Christ, Bond.
that was pretty cold,
Jesus
but
Christ.
his aspirations were space Hitler. So.
It's very much true, but that's like
Cruz, I'm
a
sorry,
man
but-
who never would.
No, see, but the problem, Bond is a man who would 10 times over. And you know what?
No.
If I had the opportunity to jettison Hitler into space,
Cruz,
We're not gonna go
would you jettison baby Hitler into space?
God damn it!
We will get to Earth, and then we'll kill you. We will not kill you in space.
We will at least kill you with a tribunal of people saying it's okay.
But to be fair, Drax tried to do the same thing to Bond.
Did he?
yeah,
they were going to jettison him into space until he got
Yeah,
got
'cause,
Jaws on his side.
Yeah,
Drax
They
is
were
trying to
lining
order
him up for
Jaws. Drax is trying to order Jaws to shove Bond and Dr. Goodhead into the airlock.
2 bonds don't make it right.
But 3 bonds make a left.
And I mean, to a certain extent, so you're saying that all the pretty people that he brought up with him, were those also the people shooting back at the soldiers?
I thought so.
Because
No,
once
you
they were no longer in their sexy white 70s costumes, I couldn't tell where they were anymore.
Yeah, they just
like,
kind of
I'm
looked
pretty
like
sure they were the ones that were shooting.
They look like
Clear, because, like...
Because
Because
I'm just
it's-
assuming that they all died in space.
Oh, yeah, they
These-
all died in
Yeah.
space,
Oh
every single
my
one of them.
God.
But if they're not in space, and then either they got shot by a laser beam or they died in the
Exploded.
But
explosion.
they didn't do anything.
like the
But because like the idea
were
is
complicit.
that Drax wouldn't have brought anyone up to the space station that wasn't handpicked to be a breeding sheep.
Mm-hmm.
So, all the breeding sheep may not have been laser shooters, but all the laser shooters were breeding sheep.
Yeah.
But it does look like a lot of the henchmen that come out at once the shooting starts are like the 30-something, probably not much going on henchmen.
Cruz is absorbing the
What's the
book.
first word on page 55?
Why?
I'm curious.
Cruz is looking for the passage where Bond sucks out the space Hitler.
The first word on page 55?
Yeah, first word on page 55.
Drax.
Yeah.
Bond sounds really salty in the ending of this book.
He typically does.
She was looking at him rather nervously, waiting to be relieved of the stranger who had tried to get his foot in the door of her heart. Ew. Bond smiled warmly at her. "I'm jealous," he said. "I had other plans for you tomorrow night." She smiled back at him, grateful that the silence had been broken. "What were they?" she asked. "I was going to take you to a farmhouse in France," he said. "And after a wonderful dinner, I was going to see if it's true what they say about the scream of a rose."
That's not medicine.
I don't know what that means. She laughed.
Probably
I'm
a line
sorry.
in a book somewhere.
"I'm sorry I can't oblige, but there are plenty of others waiting to be picked." "Yes, I suppose so," said Bond. "Well, goodbye, Gala." He held out his hand. "Goodbye, James." He touched her for the last time, and then they turned away from each other and walked off into their different lives.
But they were still in the space shuttle.
And then they attempted re-entry.
And they took a long spacewalk.
Yeah, that was probably like the grossest pun I've heard in these movies so far. In any
And it was
attempted
delivered by
re-entry.
Q. Thanks, Q.
I think he's attempting re-entry. Son.
Q, get the fuck out.
Thanks, Uncle Q. Thanks.
Where are you? Why do you hide? Where is that moonlight train that leads to your side? Just like the Moonraker goes in search of his dream of gold. Search for love, for someone to have and hold. I've seen your smile in 1,000 dreams, felt your touch, and it always seemed.
Can we drink these 7-Ups?
I'll get some. I can put some ice in them.
I have a strong psychological urge to drink 7-Up, and I have no idea why.
I was enjoying the crisp, refreshing taste of
7 Up.
You ruined it! Soiled it! Soiled it! Haven't you ever heard you help yourself before helping a child with their masks on a plane?
But the bag's not inflating. That's okay. Even if the bag is not inflating, the air is still going in.
Thank you for flying British
Airways.
It's time for us to say farewell to Haruo Nakajima, the man who powerfully portrayed Godzilla for 11 movies, makes his final kaiju appearance in Godzilla vs. Gigan. One of the more critically panned entries of the 1970s, where a manga artist and 2 freedom fighters go up against cockroach aliens disguised as theme park tycoons who seek to conquer the world with a mechanized bird monster named Gigan, and King Ghidorah, who's on loan from God knows where for the 3rd time in the series. In keeping with this hand-me-down style, Gigan is one of the more prominent films that reuses stock music and footage, taking clips from at least 5 other Toho movies. The tightening budgets continue to show with kaiju suits falling apart at the seams, in addition to the massive bloodshed that Tsuburaya never approved of in the previous films. Though the film created the fan-favorite villain Gigan, it remains as one of the more forgotten entries. So, what did you guys think of "There's something funny going on, you better check"?
What I want to know is, was that in
Before
the...
we say anything, how do you do?
How do you do?
How do you do?
How do you do?
How do you do? What I want to know is, was that in the original, them talking?
So in the original Japanese, you do hear the scratchy noises, but you hear no English. What you get are kanji speech bubbles next to their heads.
I don't know if that's better or worse, to be honest.
So they're manga cockroaches.
I was not expecting that answer.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wasn't either, but I feel like that's better because at least I'd probably, if it was English speech bubbles, at least I'd be able to understand what was being said.
Yeah, no, because like they're clearly talking. There's clearly words being spoken, but
I think he's trying to communicate with
yeah,
like
with the combination of all of that effects being piled onto the voice, plus the music and the sound effects drowning them out, you could hear what the hell they were saying. Like, just that they were saying something.
The first time Godzilla spoke, all I heard was the noise. And then I'm like, did I just hear fucking English?
Yeah, they go, God, doing these fucking voices. Hey, Angiras, what do you want? There's something funny going on. You better check. Okay.
It's
You gotta keep that cough.
And then Godzilla goes, hurry up.
Please tell me this is the only time they talk like that.
Yes.
Thank fucking God.
It'd be one thing if it was
Ow.
like consistent throughout the movie,
Yeah.
but it's not. It's just these two very specific sections that you just so happen to speak.
We're getting into the 70s, so the last film we had, Godzilla Flies. This movie, he talks. So,
I prefer the flying.
yeah.
I prefer Minion talking over
We're
this.
going to do a lot of different things.
It's a hard take there.
It is, and that's the thing that bugs me.
How about they just all shut the fuck up?
I would appreciate that more than anything, but at least I could understand Minya.
Well, after all, Jake, you're a hard bitch.
All of the elements that we see in this movie are elements that we have already seen.
Aliens,
Yeah, this is
Ghidorah.
Yeah, it kinda just
making an
feels
amusement
like-
park.
This kind of just feels like a slightly different retread of like Asher Monster.
Yeah.
Kind of, you know,
Like-
it's just, we've seen this before. I would rather have bad than unmemorable.
Yeah.
Because at least the bad, you do walk away remembering it. Where this
Yeah.
one is just, you know, cockroach people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
there's cockroach aliens.
Aliens.
the only memorable
There
thing.
certainly are aliens.
The only memorable thing about this movie is Gigan, I think.
Yeah.
Like I won't forget that, but
mean,
if you were to ask me in 2 weeks what
What was this movie about? Oh, fuck it.
I'll say the 17-year-old who looks constipated and his weird dad guy.
This movie was about peace.
Yeah.
You know what? This
More like-
movie didn't have enough peace. This movie needed more peace. Where was all the peace?
More like this movie's about pieces of industrial machinery.
Yeah, do I feel sympathy for these cockroaches that are crying in pain?
No.
Like,
No.
I don't know.
No, they're fucking cockroaches. Like maybe if they didn't actually show them turning back into cockroaches, but then they showed them turning into cockroaches, I'm like, okay, no, they're just disgusting and evil and mean.
That's insecticide.
Wow, that's probably one of the
God
only
damn
times
right.
I've ever heard Willie hate a creature of the earth.
Fuck cockroaches. They're weird.
The tagline for this movie should have been "They're aliens" instead of "alien monsters from outer
Chaz,
space
I'm-
starting to destroy mankind."
Chaz,
We'll
I'm
get
going
to
to
the-
shoot you with my peace laser.
Like
Because you need more peace.
Well, I'm going to stab you with my peace switchblade.
Oh, that's too much peace.
honestly though, the thing that I really want to know about this movie is how Germany is going to incorporate Frankenstein into the title. What was the four-legged guy that was Godzilla's pal?
Anguirus.
Anguirus.
Anguirus dragged into this movie. I don't know why exactly.
Like the scene with Anguirus leaving the first
Yeah.
time, that shot went on way too fucking long.
That's why it was so great to watch Anguirus like be able to backslam Ghidorah multiple times. It's like
Yeah.
finally he's actually like able to do something cool.
But I feel like there was multiple problems with this film that added to my boredom because I noticed more editing aspects of it that bugged me, and music was phenomenal. Like I loved the music the whole way through, but there were times where I'm like this shot's going on way too long. Like this should have ended 15 seconds
You
ago.
started to notice the movie.
I started
Yeah.
to notice the movie,
Yeah.
and I started early in the movie.
Music that you actually pointed out, when it cuts to the human characters, you can still hear it playing in the background. Very
I
faintly.
love
that was so cool. I actually loved that effect.
That was
it was like the fight itself was producing the music.
Yeah.
You could tell where the fight was.
yeah, like
That
I
was
I
cool.
noticed it immediately how it just went in volume, and it made me chuckle more inside than it did outside.
It was cute.
but I noticed it, and I was just like, that is fucking funny and great, and I loved that.
This movie itself kind of feels like a microcosm of what the Godzilla franchise is as a whole. You guys made reference that, the human parts were really boring, but the fight was really badass and was the best part. Doesn't that just describe the Godzilla franchise as a whole?
just mostly,
I
mostly.
disagree with that. Because there's been the past couple movies, I feel like, or at least multiple movies since destroy all monsters, like there have been times where the human plot was actually very interesting. Even even the one after that. Like there's been multiple times where yes, the fights are always the best part.
Let me back because I was giving a shit, and I don't want those words to actually be my personal opinion.
Okay.
I was giving a shit on it.
Okay.
Like I said, every plot point we've seen in this movie, we've seen it done before, and we've seen it done better.
Yeah.
Which puts me in a position of, well, now I definitely don't give a shit what's going on here. The fight,
Indifferent is a better word.
it is very, very indifferent about this movie and the direction it goes.
I'll take back boring and replace it with indifferent. That is the better word.
Even better.
I feel like some aspects that this movie does kind of kick up just a little bit, even if, kind of circumstantially, would be that the filmmaking seems just a little bit quirkier when the people are rappelling from the top of the Godzilla.
Yep.
They turn into little, like, paper models, and I thought that was pretty funny.
Well, the
Yeah.
budget was also running out at this point, so that was a lot of what.
I liked how I started joking about, hey, they got real taste. They actually have a budget.
Yeah, like,
they don't because it's all stock footage.
Yeah.
No, that was the joke.
Like, there was a fair amount of scenes where you could actually see, like, the Godzilla suit falling apart pretty badly. Like, strips were falling off.
I didn't catch
I noticed
that.
it a little bit.
I didn't catch that, but I think that partly plays into the fight couldn't save the indifference for me. I was still more interested in it than I was the other parts, but...
Well, you finally got your bloodshed, Willie.
Oh my
Little
god,
more
that
of
was
that.
just a giant
came
set
out
of
of
squids.
nowhere.
Yeah.
That came. I mean, that's the most shocked I've been by one of these movies since The Headshot.
It was like
It was like slasher parody.
it was like a
level
Kurosawa
of-
movie.
No, and it was like lipstick red too. It wasn't like blood red. It was lipstick bright.
You could take some of Godzilla's blood, put it on some popcorn, and boom, knock off cherry blossoms.
I would say I would
Got that reference.
I would still call Hedera. I would still say I would still consider more kind of gruesome and gory concerning with burning hands down to skeletons and like losing an eye. I would still call that about that being more gruesome. The blood spurts in this one though are definitely far more gratuitous and unnecessary. They were very unnecessary.
I feel like they were appropriate because, we're dealing with a chainsaw chicken.
Yeah, he has a chainsaw, sternum, chest, stomach, and groin.
It was definitely more appropriate in the instance where Gigan like hugged I forgot his name again.
Anguirus.
That
tells you everything. You can't remember his freaking name.
I'm just terrible with the monsters in general. I remember Gigan because it's simple.
Gigan looks like a freaking battle bot mixed with crossed with a chicken.
Right?
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
But when Gigan like hugs Anguirus and like pulls him into that spinning saw on his stomach, I can see the blood. But the one where he just kind of like flies over Godzilla and nicks his shoulder, I felt like that
was the chainsaw going right across his shoulder.
I think the direction of having just lingering battle damage as opposed to just single shots of fountains would have probably been a better angle.
Like when his fucking head got caved in.
Yeah, that was because that was a lingering wound, and you actually feel that like.
And that stayed
Godzilla's. Like Godzilla having blood and like dirt in his eyes.
Oh, I just had a terrible thought that at some point the Godzilla suit broke, so they refilmed a scene and just painted it with the blood. And so they just had to like film that the rest of the movie.
So like going off of Willie not even remembering Anguirus,
it's just the name. I remember the monster.
That would make him quite angry.
Poor Anguirus gets so fucked up in this movie. He just shows up on the beach and he gets shot at multiple times.
Yeah.
Cut to Jake going, "Hey Godzilla, how about you bring a partner that doesn't fucking suck?"
Out of all the monsters on Monster Island that Godzilla could have brought in as partner, he chose the quadruped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mothra was there for a second, but only in stock footage.
Yeah.
Mothra was there?
Her larval
I
form.
was so surprised.
Okay, I missed it.
She's briefly in there for just a tiny bit. I
Like,
was really
barely a
surprised.
second.
Yeah, I was surprised that Chaz caught that.
I missed it.
Yeah, it was in when they first start talking about Monster Island. They did just show all the monsters in stock footage.
I probably
not
saw
that
it,
one.
I just didn't process
Not
it.
just that one. It was during the fight scene at the theme park. you see just a tiny bit of her behind a bridge that actually isn't there. Because it's from Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
I didn't see that either.
And that's the funny thing about watching these films in a different order, because when I was a kid, I saw Godzilla vs. Gigan, which uses so much Destroy All Monsters footage, that when I saw Destroy All Monsters, I was like, oh, I see. I've
The
been
veil has been
fooled.
lifted. You can
Yeah.
see the man behind the curtain.
So Gigan's design comes from special effects director Toriyushi Nakano and illustrator Takayoshi Mizuki, who envisioned Gigan as a richly colored dinosaur inspired by Juninito kimonos worn by Japanese court ladies. His visor was inspired by a pair of sunglasses worn by actor Yujiro Ishihara from the movie The Echo of Love. His name comes from a portmanteau of a nickname for Ishihara, which is nice guy combined with the Japanese word for goose, gan. So, guy, gun. So in the prequel novel to the anime films, where all the monsters make Earth completely uninhabitable, Gigan is a bird kaiju hibernating in the waters off of Siberia. He's controlled by allied alien forces to fight against Godzilla and protect humanity, but is continuously defeated and modified with mechanical upgrades until he became the cyborg we've come to know him as. He ends up getting killed by Godzilla, and a medical officer vows to return one of his scales to Siberia to honor his sacrifice on behalf of mankind. One of the early ideas for Gigan in the prequel novel was that he would be modified by scientists of the former Soviet Union, becoming a communist monster that would have a hammer and sickle for arms. And, of course, a red eye. So in terms of other weird things about this film, let's move on to the advertising for it, which I have my Godzilla vs. Gigan VHS tape. Now, I want to see how many of you can point out what's wrong in this poster.
The head laser.
Yeah, we saw the head laser. Like, he never had a head laser.
Yeah, the head laser like warms up at some point in the movie, but he never uses it.
Yeah, it's featured in illustrations, and it is something that gets worked into when he comes back in the series and the video games, but never used in the actual film.
Also, the maser cannons are spotlights in this for some reason.
All right, so no one can figure out what else is wrong in this.
I
there's
thought I
something
saw
else?
something.
It's on the front.
Is it the giant horn on top?
Nope.
It feels like that's a little bit bigger than what I remember.
Is
seeing.
it the slightly geisha-looking women on the bottom left who I do
Yeah.
not believe are in this movie?
Who are those two women?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was
wait,
going
let
to
me
be
see.
my question. Who
Let
the
me
fuck
see.
are these people? They look very astonished, but you don't see them in the entire movie.
And yet they're just on the general advertising for the VHS sleeve.
Gigan's head looks like it could detach and become its own spaceship.
I mean, he looks like a Power Rangers monster.
Yeah.
Which, funny you mention it.
Mary Poppins? Oh, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, right. I know where that VHS tape is.
Yeah.
So, since his design was one of the more creative and popular, he actually does show up in like Ultraman and a bunch of other different like special effects shows.
Do they recognize it as Gigan, or
Yeah.
do they just they don't just ask the audience to just go with it?
Yeah, they actually refer to him as Gigan.
Nice.
The green
I missed the first part of this. Who were we talking about? Sorry.
the power Zord's not enough, so they have the Green Power Ranger pulls out a Godzilla-shaped whistle.
Gigan, I summon you.
I summon you, Godzilla!
Pretty much. That's the Dragon Sword.
But it's interesting to see now that we're gonna have a new suit actor going forward. If there's any like noticeable difference in Godzilla's general actions.
See if he tries to pull a George Lazenby or if he mixes it up with his own thing.
You more of a Lazenby-Zilla or a Moorzilla?
So since this is Haruo Nakajima's last suit performance in the actual film series, I decided to give a brief little history on the guy. From 1954 to 1972, Haruo Nakajima portrayed Godzilla for 12 movies, as well as a number of other kaiju mainstays for Toho, including Rodan, Varan, Baragon, Mogira, King Kong, and Gaira. As a child, he worked by gathering seaweed after school. Then as a teenager, he entered the Imperial Navy during World War II as a pilot trainee. After the war, he worked in a meat shop owned by his parents before transitioning to a truck driver and finally enrolling in acting school in 1949. He would work for Toho as a stunt actor until 1954, when he landed the role in an unusual new project the studio was working on. At first, I was told there was this new science fiction film. It was called Project G during pre-production, and I was introduced to Mr. Tsuburaya. There was a screening on the Toho Studios lot of King Kong, and from that I began to study the way a monster should move. I have an incredible memory of the first time I ever tried on a Godzilla suit. I and Katsumi Tezuka tried on the suit in front of Mr. Honda, Mr. Tsuburaya, and Mr. Tanaka. But the suit was so heavy, so stiff, I was able to walk about 10 meters, but Mr. Tezuka could only walk about 3 meters, and then he fell down. I thought, this is going to be impossible. Eventually, Tsuburaya would allow Nakajima to choreograph the monster battles himself. My fighting scenes were never the same. That's how good my acting skills were. During the filming of King Kong vs. Godzilla, he was approached by an American producer and invited to come work in Hollywood for a year, but he declined the offer. I told Mr. Tsuburaya about the offer, but he said to me, I cannot make Godzilla movies without you, so I stayed with Toho. I was very proud of my work and took it very seriously. When Mr. Tsuburaya died, I lost the will to continue. Around 1972, Toho released all 350 actors under contract, including me. After Godzilla vs. Gigan, I worked in a bowling alley. I was 43 when I retired, but it wasn't because of my age. I was physically fit, and I felt I could keep doing it. In the Heisei Godzilla series, the monsters just stand there and blast rays at each other. In my time, it was hand-to-hand combat. It was real action. Every time we would finish a scene, I would come out of the suit, drink gallons of water, and squeeze cupfuls of perspiration from my sweatshirt. If Mr. Tsuburaya asked me to do something, I would do it, no matter how difficult. But I always enjoyed what I was doing. Haru Nakajima passed away in August of 2017. He is survived by his daughter Sonoe Nakajima and an enduring legacy that has inspired generations of moviegoers.
He embodied the role that had been given to him and did his damnedest to make sure that these movies came out the way they did. And I would go so far, to say just as any great movie needs, a great director, a great writer, and a great actor to bring it all together. Even though you never really see his face, he still embodies that to the highest degree.
But on a good note, I wanted to show this incredibly made coffee commercial that kind of chronicles Nakajima's history as a performer.
1954年ゴジラ誕生。ゴジラスーツの中には戦い続けた男がいた。中島春夫。顔の映らない主役。それは100キロの重さとの戦い。それは60度を超える暑さとの戦い。それは顔が映らない役という葛藤との戦い。それは未知の怪物を演じる想像力との戦い。それは自分との戦い。努力が必ずしも報われるとは限らない。ただし賞賛は戦い続けた者だけに与えられる。
I'm guessing it was just a tribute to him after he died. They were like, what were they like mainly talking about in it? Do you have context of it?
Wait, was there subtitles on that?
Nope.
No, there was
Shit.
not. There was not.
Shit.
We have no idea what they were saying.
Damn it.
It looked pretty though.
It was cool.
It looked pretty.
I probably made it sound like the subtitles were wrong when I said it made me.
I felt like you were too perfect to make that mistake.
It didn't seem out
So
of the.
did I. And I don't know if they recorded it on a podcast or not, because they were doing a podcast episode at G-Fest. It was either that or a panel where you got to ask her questions, and I asked, did you have any involvement or what were your feelings on the Boss Coffee commercial that came out recently that paid tribute to your father? And almost everyone in the audience didn't know what I was talking about. But the people on the panel did. They were like, "Oh yeah, that's like incredible. Like, has no one else seen this thing?" And they're like, "No." And like, "Okay, well, let's bring it up on the monitor." And I was like,
Y'all about to learn.
Y'all about to get learnt.
My question is for Nakajima. How do you feel about the recent commercial that sought to recreate your father's legacy?
So the question was, how does Sonoe feel about the Boss Coffee recreation of Godzilla 54 and the tribute to her father, Nakajima-san?
最初にお話をいただいた時に、絵コンテを見せていただいて、大体の想像はついていたんですけれど、それ以上のものができたので、私もすごくびっくりして、その当時のことをちょっと思い出しました。
When I first heard about it and saw the script and other dialogues and scenarios, I heard about it beforehand, so I knew what type of commercial it was gonna be. But when I actually saw it, it made me speechless. It was like time came back.
Because of my question, it led them to show everyone this commercial, and I was like, "Yay!"
That's pretty cool. Yeah, this commercial that I'm guessing everybody on the panel was from Japan, so they would have easily seen it.
Well, that and they were just like huge fans, so they were aware of it.
Yeah.
But apparently, a lot of people hadn't seen it, and I was like, "Yay!" It transitioned into something greater and awesome context. So as I said before, this film is one of the more guilty entries of using a ton of stock footage. So, special effect director Toriushi Nakano's thoughts on the use of that. I hated it, but there was no choice. Of course, it hurt me when I had to reuse those scenes, but there was no other way. We did not have the time or the money to film new scenes. So, I tried to confront the situation as a challenge. How could I creatively edit the footage to create a completely new scene? I tried my best, but of course, if you watch the movie, you will recognize that these are scenes from previous films. When we edited the footage, we tried to make the old film look new, and the new film look old, so it would match and flow together smoothly. If you look at the eras of Godzilla history, there is the period of Mr. Tsuburaya, the period of Mr. Arikawa, my era, and afterwards. I think mine was the toughest period of all time in Godzilla history.
行くぞどこでも平和のためだ広い世界を駆け巡り目指すは悪い怪獣だでっかい体に可愛い目玉明日も戦う僕らのゴジラ頑張れ頑張れ僕らのゴジラ頑張れ頑張れ僕らのゴジラ
We now come to our list of alternate titles. For America, we have Godzilla vs. Gigan, or Godzilla on Monster Island. From England, War of the Monsters. Mm-hmm. From Spain, Galleon, the monster of the galaxies attacks the Earth. From Italy, Godzilla vs. the Giants. Play ball.
Sure. I guess. Yeah.
In that cut, Godzilla is shown to be like 1/4 their size.
Italy one? Gillian?
Yeah, Galleon.
Galleon?
Yeah.
Who?
What is he, in freaking old naval ship?
Like, Frankenstein at this point I can understand, but Galleon? That's just a completely different monster name.
Just say it with an Italian accent, it all will make sense.
Okay.
A Galleon.
Nope. Didn't help.
Hey, my best friend is an Italian.
No one said otherwise.
Good for him.
I feel like the Rube Goldberg music is going on in Cruz's head right now.
It's just the Twilight Zone theme.
What the Oh, God.
James?
We're calling someone.
We're calling James.
Hello?
James.
Yeah?
You're Italian, right?
Yes.
Thank you.
You gotta keep that. You gotta keep that.
I love it. You just reflexively said, like, no, I'm Romani. Why?
From Belgium, the planet of Godzilla. From Germany, Frankenstein's Hellbrood.
Yeah.
What? Sorry, say that one
What?
again. No. Say that one again.
Frankenstein's Hellbrood.
That is the best one yet.
So what, did Frankenstein go to the multiple layers of hell and do godly things to create Gigan in space?
Frankenstein, Hellbrood.
And my personal favorite from France, Earth Objective, Mission Apocalypse.
Hey, you could have called our Bond movie that.
So Jake, would you recommend Moonraker or Godzilla vs. Gigan to a first-time viewer?
A Moonraker, I'm going to say yes. I feel that just about any Roger Moore movie by itself is a decent stepping stone into the franchise because they're so self-contained, because they're so formulaic and mission of the week. It's easy to grab one and jump in. Moonraker is definitely one of the weirder ones to jump in, but you know what? Hey, that's kind of what makes it fun. Gigan, I'm torn. Mostly because I think by itself, just in a vacuum, I don't think it's an absolutely horrible movie to jump into for a first-time viewer. The main problem is that there are better ones to choose from. But if you were just channel surfing and this one just happens to show up, honestly, I don't see that many problems with it for it being a stepping stone.
I'm going to have to disagree with Jake on Moonraker. I wouldn't recommend it for a first time, mainly because I think the weirdness is just a hair too much for a start of a Bond film. I don't want to say it feels like the least Bond movie in the franchise, but I just feel like it's a little too different. It's a little too out there. Some of the things that happen is like the bird double take. I feel like someone's seen that kind of shit. Sure, it's funny, but I feel like it could be a turnoff for some people. So I'm gonna not recommend Moonraker, and I do agree with Jake though on this one that the first one it works because you don't have any of the knowledge of reused footage. If you have seen any of the movies prior to this movie, I would say save this one for a good while down the road because of the reused footage and the obvious wear and tear in some things. Moonraker's a no, this one's a yes.
So Moonraker for me, it would really kind of depend on if, personally speaking, you care more about James Bond for more than serious aspects, like its worldly globe-trottingness, or if the campy aspects really enhance the story, really enhance your enjoyment of these movies, then I would say Moonraker would be a pretty good first watch, especially since we had a pretty easy time riffing it. There was a lot that was fun to make fun of while still making the movie fairly enjoyable. When it comes to Godzilla versus Gigan, as much as I did like the movie, I feel like its use of reused footage would make it harder to enjoy if you've seen a handful of Godzilla movies before this, but for a first watch, it's not terrible, just definitely not the best out of all of them.
I really want to say yes to Moonraker because of just, how much fun you can have with it and how many weird things are in it. But as you can probably already tell, there are so many more other entries that are just more worthwhile and not exactly the best to jump into. It might have an amazing introductory opening action scene, but apart from that, I probably wouldn't recommend it as a first watch. Godzilla vs. Gigan, even though it was one of the films that I would watch a lot as a kid, there are other better entries to go into, and it really is more of an acquired taste for fans that are just watching throughout the entire thing instead of just a first introductory start.
Next time on James Bond, what do Cuban hitmen, Olympic ice skaters, and pistachio nut smugglers have in common? Absolutely nothing, but they're all in the next movie anyway. James Bond will return in For Your Eyes Only.
And next time on Godzilla, it's time to get our Mystery Science Theater on as we tackle what is arguably the worst entry from the 1970s. Get ready to punch, punch, punch in Godzilla vs. Megalon. Thank you all for listening to Bond vs. Godzilla. We'll see you next time with a martini in one hand and a rubber suit in the other.
Stay tuned and stay watching.